session for our CFO community, and today discussing DHS Cube. Just to remind everyone, in your packet we have the evaluation form. Please complete that for this session, and also drop off to the registration desk upon your departure for today. And for individuals seeking CPE credits, we have a CPE table right outside this room, and our representative will be able to sign your forms for you. And without further ado, please welcome Mr. Robert King.
All right, good afternoon. Just a quick show of hands. Who's here from one of the DHS components? All right, and Bert, who's here from one of the headquarters offices? Okay. All right. Well, I'm really excited to be here. I have presented at the CFO Symposium. I think this is my third year in a row talking to you about the DHS Cube. Previous version of it was Management Cube. And the last few years I've talked about where we were going. And by no means are we at our end destination, but we have arrived and we are able to provide capabilities for the department inside of mission support, business and administrative data. And we've done so in a way to provide capabilities that anyone in the department can utilize. And most importantly, utilize at no cost. Through the use of enterprise technologies that are paid for by DHS headquarters and put on web-based licenses and applications. So, for the last few years, we have been pursuing enterprise data integration through technologies like Tableau and ArcGIS Online. And before I tell you about how we got here and how you can utilize it, I wanted to open up with some context about the type of capabilities we have in our service offering today. So back in September, the director of the Office of Legislative Affairs approached our team and said, "We've got this problem set. I'm sitting the new Congress is going to be set in December, and I spend 4 to 5 people's time compiling data across all these various functions and all these different components, and it's a huge challenge. It's resource intensive and it's inaccurate." And he had been hearing about our Cube solution, and he asked, "Can you help me?" So what you see here is a screenshot of an interactive web app that we have developed and rolled out, and actually are in the process of being generated as PDFs and sent to every member of Congress, every governor, and every senator to give an overview of the department's investment in their locality. So over here, it's a little hard to read, but you have aspects about the workforce, aspects about our real property, our buildings, land, and structure, aspects about our contracts, attributes about our grants from our financial systems. We took data from multiple component systems that are disparate and ununiform. We modernized it through data marts and put it into the DHS Cube, where it was translated and standardized to defined data standards, and rolled out through what I'm going to talk to you about at data dimensions, our location dimension, to drive uniform reporting. This is an interactive web app. All of that data is blue, is hyperlinked, and can be used for filters, to filter further into the data and to drill into that data. We also provide aspects about the workforce. So again, I apologize for the lack of legibility here, but communities of practice in the state of California. How much of our workforce is dedicated to our law enforcement mission versus our screening mission versus our marine interdiction mission, right? So we can organize this data by job series codes, missions, obviously organizationally, by our components. On the right-hand side here, just shows the ability to drill into that data by state or congressional district and have those defined barriers that are published, and have the data in our various layers organized by these geographic boundaries. So now we took a process that took 4 to 5 FTE to generate data like this, and this is now turnkey reports. So this is a macro level example of how we're using Cube to drive enterprise analytics and reporting. Another example, a little bit over a year ago, this is more of a micro example. One of our components came to us and said, I've got cybersecurity personnel who work primarily alone, primarily on laptops, and I'm bringing them down to high rent real estate. What are other models? I have a hypothesis that what if I don't need to have them in high rent space? What does that model look like? So we took the data from the workforce systems, where our workforce lived. Where do they report the duty? We took APIs, the same APIs that you use for your Google Maps and your Waze. We brought them in. And we brought in our real property, and we looked at the cost of what we're paying in cities like Washington, D.C., where these individuals report the duty. So now we know where they live in the aggregate, in the centroid to a zip code, because we don't collect home addresses, but we know zip code where our workforce resides. And we built models to say, here's where we live, here's where we work, here's what we're paying in rent, and what if we looked at satellite space models where we looked at what the cost from GSA to put satellite buildings in the areas where the workforce lives. And we got out of urban areas into more rural areas. And there's a bunch, so we have cost savings built into this hypothesis, and we also have intangibles like higher morale, lower attrition, and less demand on our infrastructure like our roads. So we took out this analytics and we proposed it. It was MPPD at the time, to show them how they could potentially change their workforce footprint based off of where their workforce lived and commutes. So that's another example of how we're harnessing the power of data to drive real business analysis, taking this enterprise integrated data. So a little bit about DHS Cube. DHS Cube is the fruition of the Business Intelligence Executive Steering Committee that was chartered by the USM in 2012. What we recognized after many failed attempts at financial ERPs is that this department, the legacy cultures, the ununiform business processes doesn't align well to an ERP, a single system. We recognize that we have 12 different facility management systems. If we do it perfectly, we're going to have 5 financial systems. But we still have a need to collect data managed within the component systems, and many times in disparate state. We need to bring it up into data marts that each of the chief executive officers oversee it, define, and manage. And we've been working on this model for approximately 7 years. Now there's an inherent flaw in this model, and that's these functional stovepipes that sit across these CXOs. Just like in most places we don't have our procurement systems integrated with our asset management systems, integrated with our financial systems, we've replicated through this model the same functional silos. And the USM, seeing this model, said, I need the ability to integrate my functions, right? Think about just the location dimension. CPO has contract placement performance. Chico systems, human resource systems, have locational data about your residents, location data about your tour of duty station. Your asset and logistics systems, your air and marine systems have locational data about where your assets are housed. Your real property systems obviously have location information about the buildings, land, and structures. All of these data managed disparately, ununiformly, with no standards. That's what the DHS Cube, one of its major value propositions is to drive data uniformity. So that when we say 7th and D, or Elizabeth, St. Elizabeth's, we can look at get across the portfolio, no matter which business function, and say, this is the workforce that goes to St. Elizabeth's. These are the assets. This is the investments. This is the security investments. So driving that location and driving data interoperability is one of the major values of the Cube. And also driving cross-functional analysis. So those two examples I just gave you, you couldn't do that in any one of those data marts. You needed to take cross-functional data that was previously siloed, and you had to integrate it. And that integration we did through 6 different dimensions: the who, what, when, where, why, how. So the who dimensions are org codes, org chart. All of the systems that I've mentioned all have organizational dimensions in them, but they're ununiform. When we recently reorganized and we created CWMD and CISA and OBIM, moving OBIM, who's responsible for making sure that that org chart is published and everyone's adopting to it in a uniform manner? That's what the value proposition of Cube is: to understand who owns that authoritative data source, propagates it, and that we can ensure alignment to it. We haven't arrived yet at a subscription-based web service for data standards, but that's where we ultimately want to go, is to identify location data standards, organizational data standards, PPA data standards, mission code data standards, and we want to be able to take that from the authoritative source and publish it as a web service where any system can subscribe to it, and you know you're getting the accurate, most complete reference data as the authoritative source. So on this slide here, and I won't read each one individually to you, this is the types of data we're consolidating and curating. So you've got the facilities data, personal property data, security investment data, ISMIS data, contracts data, and that's important because a significant amount of our workforce are contractors, so knowing active contracts, who are active contractors and where they're working and the types of work they're doing is important. Our workforce is obviously very important. 2 of our top expenditures in this department are our salary and benefits dollars and our rent. Our investment data, which we'll talk a little bit more, budget performance and budget programming. We've got a backlog of 4 or 5 other functional data sets like grants that we're still trying to curate, standardize, and harmonize into our data model. So thank you for being patient with me as I kind of give you the backstory of the Cube. And I'm about to get into why do you care and how you can take advantage of it. So right now I'm going to show you guys a quick video that kind of drives some more context into the purpose of the Cube. We'll see if we can get the audio working here. All right, it's not appearing working, so we'll see if we can do it this way.
Comprised of more than a dozen components, the Department of Homeland Security faces challenges collecting, exchanging, and using our vast data. Despite these complexities, the DHS Cube helps the department overcome these challenges by leveraging our data to advance DHS business and mission support activities. The Cube works in partnership with system managers to connect the dots between financial, human capital, contracting, real and personal property, investments, program, and security data, all harmonized on one centralized IT platform. By simplifying the process of obtaining and integrating critical data that spans these business functions, the Cube enhances the quality and efficiency of your DHS analysis and reporting. The Cube delivers critical information to users through an array of analytical tools, technologies, and services. The Cube helps you conduct advanced analysis, uncover themes, and test assumptions against enterprise data sets that are critical for you to make informed business decisions. With the help of the Cube, you can do what matters most: advanced mission support functions for DHS. The DHS Cube, turning data into information and information into business insight. Learn exactly how the Cube can work for you by visiting mgmt-dashboard.dhs.gov today.
So this video, for anyone who wants to reference it, is actually if you just go up to onto YouTube and put in DHS Cube, it's actually posted there. We also have, we hosted a data jam in 2017, and we'll be hosting another one in October 2019. 2017, we brought 150 analysts across the department to do a one-day jam on a problem set. The problem set was how to surge 10,000 workforce on the southern border in the law enforcement mission, and how to meet the demands of the new administration's desire to hire the 10,000 CBP and ICE agents. So why does this matter, and how do you get access to it? So when we first stood up this product a few years ago, and it is governed by the Deputy Chief Executive Officer for the department. So USM is the executive champion for it. Each DCXO is on an executive steering committee, and that drives the priorities and the program of which Cube sits under. And a few years ago, we went from a need to know to a share first with controls data governance. And we also stood up answer facilitation. So what we did is our first operating model was unleash the analyst. Our theory was if we build it, the analyst will come. And we built the training and the tools to provide analysts access to this product and to this solution, and then we watched the utilization. And what we found was that this data mart was so large and complex, and our analysts they knew their functional domain, but they didn't necessarily understand how other functional domains are related to it. But we kept getting approached with, I need information out of it. So we pivoted, and we went with answer facilitation. And what we've done is we've created, using rapid prototypes being an agile methodologies, we've been able to now take your requirements. We've created a SharePoint site where we can work with any analyst inside the department or decision maker to understand their needs. Collect requirements, contact the analyst who owns the requirements to understand the intent and the spirit of the requirement, not just the letter. We use tools like Tableau Enterprise and ArcGIS Online, which is a cloud-based solution. Both these products allow for rapid prototyping where we can stand up a web app very quickly in a matter of hours. And through this process of working with the analyst who's requesting the data, we can ensure with our dedicated centralized subject matter experts that we can pull the data with completeness and accuracy cooked into the web app that we spin up. So, for example, going back to the OLA, first example I gave, or the second example I gave, in our old model we would have said, let us train you on how to meet your requirement, either OLA or MPPD with your cyber workforce. Instead, by having this answer facilitation model up, what we did is we engaged, we created a development cycle very rapidly, engaging weekly, where we would get the requirements, do mock-ups, do prototypes, and then every week engage with them to see if it met their requirements. That OLA solution was stood up in approximately 8 weeks. And now we've taken a solution that took 4 to 5 people to cobble data together, and now they have turnkey reports. And it's an interactive web app. So within 8 weeks, we were able to do that. In the past, we would have tried to train them on that. But now we have a centralized, dedicated team that can ensure data accuracy, data quality, and meet the requirements of the stakeholder. Same thing with the MPPD example, right? It was, let us train you, give you the tools to create it yourself. Instead, we built a web app for them, and now they're interacting with the solution. What we're finding is the more web apps we stood up, the more the users are engaging, the more requirements we're getting. And the users who provided that, now that's sparking their interest, and now they're getting context into how they can apply the solution to other use cases. And now they're seeing that it's worthwhile investing in getting the analysts trained. And so now, as we've stood up the answer facilitation service, it's actually building momentum with the Unleash the Analysts. And now that context through the web apps are giving them the, sparking their imagination to understand how they can further utilize it. So we've understood we've got to operate both operating models for the analysts inside the department. So we do have a SharePoint site. We have a website. You can access the website, anyone in the department. We will give us your requirements. We typically contact you within a business day, and we'll start that engagement with your team. We have a multi-tiered data governance and user access control. So every web app we stand up can be controlled at the user level. So we stand up a web app, not everyone in the department gets access to it. We control it at the web app level. And we have a data governance, a multi-tiered data governance that ultimately is chaired by the USM, and that is DCXOs to ensure that we are controlling and limiting that data under our current policy. So where you want to kind of, before we get into the question and answer session of this, I wanted to give you two other contextual examples. Less than a year ago, when an incident occurred, be it the wildfires from last fall in Northern California, be it the hurricanes from last Irma and Harvey hurricanes, or the hurricane that hit Hawaii. Previously, the various lines of business within management would each run an individual report. Human Capital Office would do the workforce report. CRSO would do the asset and facilities report. CFO would maybe potentially do the grants impact. CPO would do contractors. We'd all set up our reports up their ranks, and they'd have non-uniform maps, non-uniform data. Leadership had to cobble that together. So one of the solutions we've been, and through our data governance, was one single integration layer, one set of reports that pulls all this integrated data. So this now is approximately a 20-page report that looks at across all our business domains, all our mission support domains, and within a matter of hours of any major incident being declared. We can take feeds from things like the FEMA floodplain, the National Hurricane Center. We have a direct interface with the Geospatial Management Office's GII, where we can pull in other layers like storm surge size. And we can overlay our data against the various layers in a uniform, standard manner. So on the left-hand side is an example of that, where we had civilian residences with a heat map broken down by our different types of communities of practice. So you can see that 77% of those impacted were from the law enforcement mission. Other example is specifically pinpointing where our building lease equivalents. Those are those buildings that we lease commercially or from GSA in that code of uncertainty during a hurricane, looking at the 1, 3, and 5 day span of code of uncertainty. This report now goes to the secretary, deputy secretary, it goes to ops, and it goes to the CXOs across the department. And it's now done in a single report with uniform data that's been assured by each of those data stewards that own data as pieces of it. So those are some tactical examples I've given. But the Executive Steering Committee and USM have also got some more strategic, multi-year integration points that they've been driving. And we've got 4 specific I-teams, or integration teams, that we've been working towards to drive data-driven decision-making and uniformity. The 4 are health metrics, which we just deployed in December. Human capital budget execution, occupancy rate, and unified views of investment. And each of these have been either, 2 of them have a production deployment, and 2 of them are going to have initial operating capabilities within the FY19 year. These are multi-year projects that have an executive champion, and these are actually looking to solve strategic cross policy, business process, and data challenges. Unified views of investment, I think you guys have heard a lot about from the financial community. There's been lots of communication from management about this, because what this has done is taken the top 40 MAOL investment programs in the department and taken and built a single view across the 9 various objects of the acquisition lifecycle and put a single report for it. Parm and the cost accounting division within CFO own that solution. So a little bit more details about these 4 solutions that we've been pursuing through the Cube program and are championed by our executive steering committee. Health metrics. And then, given some of the leadership turnover, this has actually been very strategically valuable to us. For each of the CXOs, each of the chief executive officers, identified their key performance indicators and how they manage the health of their specific domains. Through a single tool, we were able to migrate this. This is actually built in what's called the RGS Online operational dashboard. Same technology that is available to everyone, and we'll be rolling this out across all the components in FY20, but it's been migrated with the key performance indicators and metrics from each of the components. And so what you have here is a USM headquarters level view of all the CXOs in an aggregate score of their health against their KPIs and metrics. Again, anything that's blue is indicative of a drill path. So here I have a USM view, drilled into a chief financial officer view, and now I'm looking at the various metrics and how they've been organized. So I have the headquarters CFO, budget, financial assistance, policy and oversight, financial management, program analysis and evaluation, risk management and assurance. So that's how the dozens of KPIs that CFOs identified are organized. Each of these have a drill path where they're at the lowest level, each component is scored against the defined metric or metrics and then aggregated to a score. So this has been a priority for the USM, especially with the change in leadership. We can now have a single solution for identifying everything we're worth measuring within our mission support, business, and administrative domains, and migrating to a single tool to show the performance and health of it. Human capital budget execution. What is that? This is take the mechanism to understand what we budgeted for our workforce. Again, one of our highest expenditures in this department is salary and benefits. And taking it and understanding where we are in the budget execution of the salary and benefits. This required us to stand up a position table that each component now populates against billed versus unbilled FTE. And it allows us to take those positions, tie them to individuals, and through that position alignment, we're able to associate program, project, and activity codes. So now we're able to, through the PPA alignment, integrate payroll and personnel data and come up with single views of what we budgeted for salary and benefits versus where we are in the execution process each year. This is actually a very critical for the next solution we're about to have, but through this relationship of people to position and then position to location, we can actually drive occupancy rate of buildings. So one of our biggest challenges we have is tour of duty station in our workforce systems is at the city-state level. We don't know where our workforce goes to work. We don't know the occupancy or the building utilization of our buildings. And how do we quantify that? As we look for cost saving and co-location and consolidation opportunities, having quantifiable data to speak to the current capacity of our buildings is critical. But to the HC3E, this up right-hand corner is PPAs. So now I can understand what program, project, and activities are actually being conducted in these buildings. And if I take a regional view, I now know where I have common program, project activities within a city or a sector. And I'm able to now also use that as a data input for looking at co-location and consolidation opportunities, right? If I look at the law enforcement mission requirements, law enforcement mission needs access to holding cells, they need access to secure parking, they need access to close proximity to court systems. So instead of taking an organizational look at my law enforcement real estate requirements, I'm able to look at my law enforcement program project activity codes and see where I have capacity. That's how we're using the data now to explore, and we're bringing this on. We brought headquarters onto it. We're in the process of FEMA and ICE being migrated into this data by the end of 19, and we've got a plan for the components, the remaining components in 20. And so this is our first prototype of how we're going to organize the data based off of the assignment of individuals to their buildings and how often they're there. Ultimately, we'll be pulling actually physical access control system data and logical access data from other sources to create a mosaic of data inputs to drive the population in this solution. And our final I-team that I spoke to a little bit earlier before. This solution was 3 years in the making and led by the cost accounting division and our program assessment and risk management divisions because of the amount of integration. 6 functional silos of data spanning multiple CXOs were required to build a single view of the 40 MAOL programs. And we're still migrating some of the complete, but you needed to have the workforce staffing models. You had to have the program risk assessment, the financial, all the contracts associated to the program and investments. Making sure that those were all aligned to the appropriate programs and met certain quality control. Now, through the 9 gateways of your acquisition lifecycle, instead of each of those being disparate, ununiform data traditionally done on PowerPoint, now the entire department can access a single authoritative view, interactive web app that has drill down capabilities for of the top 40 programs. And I'll pause for a second, I'm sorry. Not all 40 of them have been migrated. We're in the process of incrementally rolling out, but we've got the initial production deployment in the first I don't know how many specifically have been migrated, but about the first 10 to 15 have been migrated already. So again, we took a process that was ununiform, paper-driven, lacked authoritative and data consistency, and now we've brought it online into a single report that anyone can access within the department. We have thousands of users of this solution, or anticipate 1,000 users. We're at a couple hundred right now just for the first 15 reports. So today my goal was to give you an idea of the Cube, what our mission is. This has been a multi-year initiative. But last year when I came out here and briefed, I couldn't tell you how necessarily you could take advantage of it. Through that answer facilitation process,